morning, everybody, or evening, or whatever time you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for being in the Genius Lab. We have an exciting guest today. It's kind of funny because I've been in the alternative spiritual world, the shaman circles. I've studied with Michael Harner from the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, studied with Phil Crazybull from the Lakota, Malidoma from the Dagara, Four Winds from the Andean Studies. And I've met a lot of wacky people, and I've met some super authentic people, but very few. Okay. And I'm really, really particular. And a lot of it is because of being taught by indigenous people. They're not into marketing and flash and dash like all the, Western people are. So when I met Isabella, I'm like, oh my God, this person's for real. And she's one of the few people that I've actually had do healing sessions for me. And I would like to introduce Shaman Isabella. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thanks for having me, Toby. I was like, oh, of course. I just started my own podcast, and here comes Toby. Toby's going to have great. We're going to, mix and mingle. So thanks again for having me. I appreciate
Beautiful.
it.
The theme here in the Genius Lab is realize your greatness. My main teacher for 30 years, a guy named Malidoma Somé, he had a saying that everyone is born a genius, and it's the job of the village or the community to support, to acknowledge and support the genius that resides in each and every person. And so when I started this podcast like 3 years ago, it was about realizing your greatness. And what I've realized since I've started doing these interviews, because it usually was just me talking my stuff, right? And I'm like, God, I'm boring. So it's time to bring other people in. So when it comes to the theme of realizing your greatness, what does that mean for you?
Well, it's interesting you should ask. I look at that as creativity. So realizing your greatness is, to me, realizing how creative you are. So most people, I spoke at the Mindfulness Expo last year, and I will be speaking again this year, April 29th, 2023, we're in, on your creativity and how many people feel creative. And you have people raise their hands, and not even half, just a few sprinkling of people raise their hand feeling that they're creative. And so I teach them that they are and remind them who they are. And it's a beautiful thing. So for me, that is what it means. It means tapping into that innate intelligence and creative genius that you are.
I love it. So is it hard to be creative? I mean, does it take effort? I mean, the thing that I see a lot is like, well, you have to do this ritual 500 times before anything happens, or you have to get these rights before you have any power, and all this kind of stuff. And so, like, how do you tap into your creativity?
Well, meditation, right? Meditation is a great way to tap into your creativity. But also trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, having a deep inner wisdom that you can rely on. And I believe, unfortunately, we're not taught that. We're not taught, many of us, I mean, some are, but many people in our day and age, right? We weren't really, and especially in this day and age, because the phone is doing everything for everyone, which I'm not going to negate the phone, because that's how we got on this call. Because
that's true, nothing wrong with that. However,
excuse me if I'm moving around a bit, but so it's that teaching your children and teaching yourself for creative play. To get outside, to lie in the grass, to eat the clover, to look at the ladybug, to look at the colors, to really, begin to trust your intuition, listen to that inner knowing. We all have an inner knowing. We all have a creative genius. We all have it. We just really haven't been guided in that direction. So no, I'm very, when I do my healings, I'm, as you know, I'm not a lot about, I mean, I love the ritual aspect, and I love all the tradition and all of that, but it's like, this is where we're at. That was then. This is now. How are we going to move forward? Don't let your story define you. Let's keep, let's get it done. Like, let's clear that out. And, yes, there's a time and place, I'm about to start a subscription series in June on every new moon. So yes, there is power in the fire ceremony at the full moon and creating on the new moon. But yeah, if you want to learn or want to tap into your creativity, grab a coloring book and crayons and go to town.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, did you just naturally fall into this, or have you had some rough patches in terms of learning experiences?
Oh, I've had so many.
The reason I asked this is a lot of teachers get up there and they're like, oh, la da 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 da, and they're all cool and all that, and you're like, this person has never had a fucking problem like I've had. So how would
Right?
they possibly know, right? Because most Western promoters, I remember seeing one person who's particularly famous, who I won't mention, but I was like devastated meeting him, and I'm like, this guy's a fucking idiot. I couldn't believe. And then I find out, of course, all his books were ghostwritten, and so on and so forth. So I'm like, oh, he was just a marketing genius. And it was so disappointing to know the real person, because I had such a wonderful mentor in the image. And so have you ever had a situation where you've like been disappointed in somebody, or something you tried didn't work, or are you just magnificently successful automatically?
No. I love the title of your book, which is Reclaim Your, say the title for me, but it's about reclaiming your shit, right?
Yeah.
And my thing I always wanted to create was shift your shit with the no shit shaman, because that's me. I mean, I had 20 years of abuse. I was in prison. You don't even know all of my story. I've had an intense, fucked up life that I look back on now and say, well, I'm releasing old karma. I chose to come on the planet and have this experience so I could be the blonde Orange County shaman at, the orangecountyhealingcenter.com. It's insane. And then even the last 15 years, since my first healing in 2006, it has not been rough. I mean, it has not been easy. It has been rough. It has been one challenge after another, and trusting spirit financially, like, okay, I don't know how the mortgage is going to get paid this month. God is my bank account. That's what
I love it.
The universe has my back, and I made that deck of cards, the Good Vibes Positive Affirmation deck. And in there, it
people
says,
still get those?
You can get them in Spanish, and I have a couple in English. I need to remake them. But, now with the podcast and the subscription and, everything, my creativity. So let's talk about the genius and the creativity, right?
Yeah.
Mine comes like the waves of the ocean. It ebbs and it flows. And I feel like I've been in a dark void for 2 years, even though, with COVID. But even though I built a back house and I got back together with my longtime love and I'm going to marry him. And, even with all that, those 2 years, I felt stagnant. It wasn't until this year I had these ideas of getting back to my roots with women's stories. And I started a Modern Shaman podcast with my friend Kimberly Harlan that owns the vegan Modern Shaman restaurant in Whittier. And I am now doing women's stories to enlighten and inspire. And before shamanism, I have a master's degree in theater, and I developed a one-woman show called Ab Reaction, a collection of women's stories. So I feel like now I'm sort of getting back to that love of helping women and men, because even though it's a show for women, men are listening and sending in, oh, I can relate to that, or, oh, because we are all one.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's some big stuff.
I know. I just threw a lot at you. You're
wow,
like,
I love it.
What should I hold on to there? There was a lot.
Well, I mean, the thing that I see, and it's so much like my personal story is similar. I mean, I went from being a big executive in the athletic shoe business to losing everything due to a cocaine addiction, to meeting Malidoma and starting this alternative healing path, creating sound attunement therapy back in 1998, traveling 300 days a year for 10 years, doing this metaphysical stuff. And then I discovered recording, and I'm like, oh, this is so fun. And then it's like things ran their course. And then it's like, wow, I was doing all this stuff. And then I started a chain of espresso bars, and then I opened a restaurant. And, it's like it can manifest itself in so many different ways. And it's exciting to see someone like yourself who's at least from my point of view, is tremendously successful and amazingly accomplished. It doesn't seem at all like, how could she possibly suffer or struggle with anything?
Oh, I do. And, it was really 2006, meeting Alberto Violdo and the Four Winds Society, and Marcela Lobos's first healing that she gave me over the phone, which I didn't even believe in, that it could happen over the phone. Of course, now I do them because I have clients all over the world. But it really changed my life. So even though in 1991 I went through his 12-step program, got my life together, and began with the Louise Hay and Doreen Virtue and all the metaphysical things, I didn't really begin to tap into that inner wisdom and trust myself until I was almost 50, and met the Four Winds, and traveled to Peru, and then started taking people to Peru, and then started taking people around the world to all the sacred sites. It's interesting now, almost 63, I'll be 63 this year, that first of all, it's interesting that I made it and I'm still alive. That's number one. Chalk that up. But when I was looking at your, talking about greatness, it's very difficult to talk about how great you are. You know what I mean? Or what you think your greatness is. And you're like, no, I'm not that great. I'm not all that. I do, but I am. And I have people like you and clients that come to me and tell me how I've changed their entire lives and the lives of their families. So I'm just grateful. There's no ego. I am so blown away, man.
Yeah.
Comes through me, and how I just get out of the way. I learned those techniques from Alberto, and I took a couple of, like, a Reiki class and some other class, and it just wasn't for me. Whatever is inside of me got awakened in those classes, and I never looked back. And I tell people, your teacher's going to fall off a pedestal. Like, do not put me on a pedestal. Of course, Alberto fell off the pedestal for me. Your guy fell off the pedestal for you when you saw him live.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. My biggest thing, if there are any healers out there listening, if there are any people that want to step into this and are struggling financially, there is I think it's a thing. We manifest here on earth. This is where we manifest. You plant your seeds to grow your business. Plant your seeds, put the seed under your tongue, roll it around, metaphorically speaking, and put it in the earth. We spend so much time up here and out of our bodies and up in this realm that I think that is why a lot of people aren't cancel, but struggling or not making it. Bring all that etheric energy into your body, attach your divine line to the front of your spine, ground it in like roots of a tree, and manifest. So, it's, you asked earlier about, doing rituals over and over, or having to manifest over and over, no, you don't. You ask for it, you visualize it, you feel what it would feel like to be in that situation, and then you watch and see. But it's like, I always say, highest and best good, no harm to anyone. And the universe will always give me more than I could have ever dreamed possible. So don't limit yourself. I always say this or something better. I want this or something better.
Nice. That's beautiful. I was going to ask you for some advice to people who are listening, and you just gave some of the best advice I've ever heard. Anything else you have to say?
That's because you and I are on the same page, brother. You and I remember, well, I don't know how much time we have, but I remember the first time I saw you, you were running through a Four Winds class with drums and people were all over you. And I think I was like lying on the floor in the middle of a session, or I was something. I remember looking up and here goes this good looking tall guy with drums, just like, and I think maybe it was in Utah when we were doing soul retrieval and destiny retrieval or something, or walking with protection. Walking with protection, great class. And you went flying past and we connected, got each other's phone numbers or something. And then it was years later that you put out your cowrie shell reading on Facebook. And I said, I'm doing that. And then we've been connected ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
Time flies when you're having fun, man.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Do I want to leave anybody with anything? Is trust yourself. Stop giving your power away. Listen to how you give your power away. Listen to what you're thinking about yourself and how you're victimizing yourself. And realize there are no victims, only volunteers, and stop signing up. Stop signing up to be the victim of your own reality. You are the creator. Go out and create it.
I love it. Isabella, thank you so much for being in the Genius Lab. I am so happy that you're my friend and that you were kind enough to donate your time. And
I loved having me on. If you want
Awesome.
to find me, if anyone wants to find me, go to Shaman Isabella anywhere. So shamanisabella.com, Shaman Isabella Instagram, Shaman Isabella Facebook. That's it. It's super easy. shamanisabella@gmail.com. You need to get in touch with me. I'm here.
And those of you who are struggling, particularly women, who, the thing that I always think it's funny when there's a guy teaching women's mysteries. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Unless he learned it from a woman. I'm always the devil's advocate. I'm always looking at the bird's eye view. And you know what? You got your karma. You got your stuff. I'm not going to hold on to it. Just love and light, man. What
I like to do is refer women to women because it's just cleaner to me. If someone's going to really get into it, and it sounds like this subscription thing that you're moving towards and some of the work that you're doing is really, really particularly powerful for the women in the audience. And so you have my recommendation 100%.
Thank you,
and so anyone who listens to this, she's got my thumbs up 100 times. So
love you so much. Many, many blessings.
Thank you.